Hey everyone, Catch 'em All Collectibles here. In today's video, I'm going to show you 10 years of my gross sales history. As transparent as I've ever been, the most time and energy I've put into making a single YouTube video, I'm going to just lay it all out there. The goal of this is to just show you my journey, let you know year by year what I was doing, how I leveled up over the years. With that, let's just get right into it because this might be a long one. PowerPoint style, you gotta love the PowerPoints. My annual sales history, leveling up from hobby to side hustle to business. This is going to be my gross sales 2013 through 2022. Right off the bat, you've got a nice chart. We love our charts. And no, this is not the chart of what a bubble looks like. Hopefully this one doesn't pop. Hopefully it's not unsustainable. But yeah, this is my 10 years of gross sales. Note, this is not how much I netted. This is not how much I made by year. But you can see my humble beginnings in Pokemon in 2014, carrying all the way through to the recent year. Each year will have its own slide. I'm going to show you the top 3 buys and sells from each year, and maybe talk about a couple life milestones in certain years, a couple business milestones in certain years, and just go from there. There's a lot to cover, so let's just keep plugging along. I will say quickly too, before I get into it, this is the first time I've ever personally put all my gross sales together in one chart like this. So when I first put this together, this was me seeing it for the first time only 2 nights ago. Really interesting to me, and yeah, I'll elaborate on that as we go through. 2013, I was not yet into Pokemon, and I do want to say, as it said on the first slide, I had my eBay account since 2004. Back in 2007 in high school, I was selling video games. Throughout college, I did some coins, video games, Legos, Steins, all different kinds of things. But 2013, I just wanted to contextualize where I was the year before I got into Pokemon. $53,000 gross. One big milestone that I did, I believe it was that year. The further back we go, the little bit hazier the details were, but I'm pretty sure that was the year that I got a separate bank account and a separate credit card. One bit of advice that I recommend to many people, thankfully that's something that I learned before I got into Pokemon with all the coins and everything I was doing. One interesting note, and you see the nice Schultz and Dooley Stein in the top right. You also see the beautiful St. Gaudens double eagle towards the bottom left. You'll see that exists in both the buy and sell column. Early in the year, I thought I would buy it as a investment piece, as a big collection piece. I thought it might appreciate in value over time. You can see that in November of last year, one sold for $2,600. So it did appreciate from my buy point in early 2013 of $2,080, but I paper handed it several months after I bought it. I sold it for $300 less. And that was a gross sale, not a net sale. So I lost $300 plus fees, plus shipping, plus the amount of time, opportunity cost, all that. Just wanted to really demonstrate my biggest singular buy and sell was me mistakenly trying to buy a big collection and or investment long-term hold piece. And what I was buying and selling at the time, though, as you can see, primarily coins and steins. I had a couple big $1,000 to $2,000 Stein collections, $500 to $1,000 coin collections. That was kind of like the highest end where my comfort zone was for buying things. And I remember having that double eagle. It was beautiful. It was like the prize piece of my coin collection, but it was definitely a mistake. It was a mistake at the time, buying one singular item for larger than the biggest buying one singular piece for more than the largest collection I had bought to date was just really foolish at the time. And thankfully, I didn't double down on it. I didn't keep holding it. I didn't get one thing I mentioned many times, and I'll try to periodically leave a couple maybe bits of wisdom or lessons learned throughout these slides. But yeah, the worst thing you can do sometimes is get too loss averse. The worst, it's bad to take a loss. It's bad to lose $300, $400, $500 on a single coin. But what would have been worse would have been to have held that coin for 10 more years to only have it appreciate $600. The opportunity cost of having that capital tied up when I grossed $53,000 in sales for the year would have been very detrimental to my early business, and it would have been $2,000 I wouldn't have had to put into Pokemon at the time. So yeah, continuing on from 2013, 2014, my first year into Pokemon, Phantom Forces. I've mentioned it many times. That was the set. That was the set. It didn't bring me back in. Finding my old binders in a move. I bought a new house in 2013. I came across those binders in 2014. Phantom Forces was the newest set though. I bought a case for $600. That was the going rate at the time. Some big sales that I made. I sold a silver America the Beautiful 5-ounce lot of bullion rounds. I sold, as you can see on the right side, we got Schultz and Dooley scuba diver set. The original Steins were made in 1959. At the time, kind of a modern versus vintage debate. This scuba set was selling for as much as the originals that were at the time nearly 60 years old, about 55 years old at the time. So the funny modern versus vintage debate that we go through here in Pokemon, that was always a thing in Steins too. I was also doing Legos. 5-pound Lego lots. One 5-pound Lego lot, I believe I was selling for anywhere between $50 to $60. That was not one of my highest 3 sales as far as singular item dollars, but how many times I sold, how many lots I sold throughout the year. That was one of my bigger items. And at the bottom, I'll do kind of an overview or a highlight kind of theme for the year. I was doing a little bit of everything in 2014. Only $39,000 in gross sales, but it was Steins, it was coins, probably a little bit of video games, some bullion, some Lego. I was all over the place, not really having a great sense of direction, not really knowing what I'd be doing. But I've mentioned it before, $5,000 I allocated from my play money, my business, my side hustle, hobby income, hobby budget, I guess, was allocated into Pokemon, and $600, over 10% of my initial budget was put into a Phantom Forces booster case. So that's where that went. 2014, the year I got back in, a big year, obviously. 2015, $96,000 in gross sales. This is the year that I would say I started establishing myself, learning to flip Pokemon and getting a feel for how it all went. I dove in head first. You can see big 3 buys on the right side. I started more late in the year. This wasn't right in January. This wasn't only a few months in, but mid to late year, I found out very quickly that I could buy Jungle, Fossil, Rocket, and German base first boxes in the $300 to $500 range, crack them open, and sell the hits. Sell the hits in PSA 10, sell the light packs to pack art collectors. I was buying base unlimited boxes for $700 each. And the first 4-figure buy that I made in Pokemon, very quick, very early, I went for the OG of the hobby, the base first Charizard. And you can see in my big 3 sales, not necessarily all by price point, but I think just big milestone sales for me. $420 for a PSA 5 first edition base Charizard. That's the same Charizard that came in the $1,000 collection that I bought. I did make money on that collection, probably a few $100s, I don't remember exactly, but the Charizard was the centerpiece. There were several other base first edition holos, probably Jungle, Fossil as well. I also sold a Neo Genesis first edition box for $820. This was kind of news to me. I didn't remember selling as many WotC boxes as I had. But yeah, looking back in my archives, I was primarily buying them and ripping them. But there were times where I would buy duplicates, and instead of just ripping both at once, I would price one kind of high, buy it now on eBay, and if they went before I got to opening them. So yeah, I did find some periodic sales where I would buy a Neo Genesis box for $500-$600, sell it for $800, buy a Jungle Fossil box for $300-$400, sell it for $500 or $600. Those flips were in there intermittently, but it was mostly buying, opening, selling the hits. There are some slab sales that aren't shown, but there were definitely some PSA 10 Laprases in the few hundred to several $100 range. Again, the further back I was, the worse my records are, so it's hard to find it all. But I do remember, and I did have record of selling a PSA 10 base unlimited Charizard for $400. Highlights of the year: first PSA submission. I opened an account with PSA. That PSA 5 base first Charizard was in my very first submission. Along with that, there was a PSA 10 Shining Unlimited Charizard. I don't know what I ended up selling that one for. I couldn't find record of it. The best records I have were from eBay. At the time, eBay managed payments wasn't a thing. All sales on eBay were documented through PayPal. So I did have record of the sales shown, the big 3 sales shown, but I likely did have some private sales that I set up through E4 things of that nature that I just couldn't really find details on. I probably spent 3 to 4 hours digging to put all this together, and there's still gaps. There's still things I was missing. But yeah, hopefully this presentation of great interest to me. Very, very interesting putting all this together. Hopefully it's of use to some people as well. 2016, $200,000 in gross sales. I call it collector boy. Top right, you can see a picture of a Techno Charizard. I was buying I was buying sealed Topps Chrome boxes, Series 1, for about $100 a piece. I bought about 10 in this year, and I cracked 2 Techno Charizards myself. You can see big 3 sales. I actually list 4 sales. Honorable mention sale is Techno Charizards. I don't remember the exact prices. One graded the PSA 9, and I sold it around $1,000. Again, it was a private deal, so it was harder to find. I also sold another one raw, and it was in that same $1,000 vicinity. Those cards today are doing big, big things. You'll find a very common theme. Pre-2020, a lot of things were selling for what today feels super cheap. I have no regrets. I was flipping. It was all collector focused. It was all funding my collection, optimizing my dollar, getting it to go as far as I could towards my goals. But yeah, every penny counted, and I had to keep things moving. So don't regret any of my sales. But big 3 sales for the year. Those Technozards were 2 of them. An art set of each e-reader set. So I'm talking Legendary Collection, Aquapolis, Skyridge, and Expedition. So 16 packs for $800. What a deal. 9,000 bulk cards. Looking at my PayPal for the year, 2 of my biggest sales really shocked me, and they were really funny. One was simply, I used to sell a 3,000 count bulk common and uncommon lot on eBay. I used to sell that for around $300. Well, someone bought 3 of them, and I gave them a slight deal, $800 for the 3. So you're looking at almost 9 cents a card for bulk. Bulk these days is a lot lower than that. About a penny a piece for commons and uncommons. But yeah, another lot. I remember back in the day, I remember it very vividly, buying tons of XY era collection boxes that had Roaring Skies in them so that I could break them down and sell the Roaring Skies packs. Here you can see one of my biggest singular sales for the year was 144 Roaring Skies packs all at once. Somebody must have been hunting the shamans for their decks. $790, a little over $5 a pack. Really interesting that was one of my top sales for the year. Big 3 buys, all boxes. One of my goals that I set in early 2015, somewhere around there, having missed so much time in the hobby, I knew that I needed to open every box. So I set a goal to open every box. I ended up completing it. But yeah, along the way, 2015, 2016, 2017 were the primary years that I was checking that off. I bought a Skyridge box for $2,300, Neo Rev First Edition for $1,200, and EX Dragon Frontiers for about $1,300, all in 2016. So my 3 biggest buys, all collector focused, boxes to rip. Crazy to think about that. What if I had been flipping? What if I had just been doing this for profit? What if I had been buying collections to grade and flip? And I always think about it, but I mean, I don't have any regrets. Again, I'm here today doing what I'm doing because of the culmination of all my past actions, right? So highlights for the year. This was peak collector Dan. I was checking off huge boxes. Skyridge. I was opening Topps Chrome Techno Charizards. Pokemon Go came out. 2016 was big. $200,000 gross sales. That was massive. My biggest yet. I opened my first heavy pack in this year. I couldn't find what I had paid for it. It was definitely a private deal through E4. I tried perusing through my archives of messages, and I just couldn't find it exactly what I had paid. Somewhere along the line of a few $100s if I had to guess. But I got a Ninetales with a print line that graded the PSA 8. I did find a video of it. Maybe I'll release that video. I need to edit it some, but maybe I'll release that video in the future on my channel. A little bit too long for a short. I think it took me a few minutes to get it open and get every card sleeved, but it was really cool to go back and watch that video for the first time in years. 2017, finishing up the goals, $267,000 in gross sales. Again, a new record for me. Continuing growth, just flipping, churning, growing my collection. Through this time, I have still not yet taken a penny out of the hobby. All the money goes back in up till 2020, and we'll get to that later. Big 3 sales. Sorry, let's cover big 3 buys first. I guess I should have put the buys in the left column and then the sales in the right column. But anyways, $13,500 collection linked by Gary on E4. You can see the post. You probably can't read it. I can barely read it myself. But I remember in the giant auction thread, Gary posted that one of his friends listed a large lot of cards, PSA 10s, and mint raws, and he just linked the eBay listing. I checked it out. I messaged the seller. I ended up working out a deal. Biggest collection I bought to date by far. This one was bought in October, and between October and December of that year, I ended up buying the David Adams Card World collection for $11,900, and I also bought a complete PSA 9 base first edition set from Gary himself for $8,300. So I owe a lot to Gary. 2017, he hooked me up with 13.5K buy that I did really well on. I don't have exact tracking of what that lot did, but I want to say I made several $1,000s, all funded new things for my collection, new boxes to buy, to rip, to lose money on, to complete that goal. And then the $8,300 base set first edition PSA 9, part of the reason I wanted to talk about the buys first, that $8,300 PSA 9 base first set, the Charizard was super clean. It was not PSA 10 clean, but it was BGS 9.5 clean. First time I ever submitted to BGS, I upgraded a Charizard from a PSA 9 to a BGS 9.5. My first slab optimization I ever completed, and it went very well. I benefited from appreciation. So at the time, a base first Charizard, if I remember correctly, was in the $4,000 to $5,000 range. Not alone was the BGS 9.5 Charizard worth that much, but in the couple months between when I bought the set from Gary and then sold the Charizard, I remember I actually sold it in person in Florida. I met up with the guy in the airport, part trade, part cash, about half cash, and it included some gold stars and some other really heavy hitter cards. But yeah, that was the biggest. 2017 was very big. First time I got into five figures on the buy side and the sell side. You can see from 2016, I'm in the low four-figure range on buys and sells, and I hop right into the five-figure range in 2017. So big move for me. I also, highlights for the year, I finished my goal of opening every box. So big collector Dan goal checked off, but I wasn't done. Two other big sales for the year, really interesting ones. There was a collector in Sweden, I believe, that I did direct sales to. One of them was 99 PSA 10 Jungle and Fossil First Edition, and then Shadowless PSA 10 Common and Uncommons. 99 of them. And I don't have the sale price listed here. I might have accidentally covered it with the Yanma, but it was right around $3,000 for 100 PSA 10, nearly 100 PSA 10, about $30 a piece average. $30 a piece average. That's Pikachu and Eevee. That's I believe it was a complete Jungle and Fossil common and uncommon set. So you're talking 64 cards right there, if I'm remembering correctly. And then it would have been about 35 Shadowless common and uncommons. You think Weedles and Nidorans and cards like that, Diglets. $30 a piece average, approximately. And then I sold the PSA 10 Yanma first edition. This wasn't the Yanma I sold specifically. This is just one somebody had on eBay with the certs blocked out. I didn't do that. But yeah, I sold it for $2,300 nearly in auction to the same guy who bought the lot of 99 cards. So 2017 was a big year. I mean, every year's been a big year. 2018, $163,000 in gross sales. You can see that my gross sales declined. First time they declined in a span of years. Big part of that, you can see highlight for the year, life highlight, life milestone, birth of my first child. My son was born in 2018. So I definitely had less time. I definitely pulled back a little bit on the side hobby, side hustle, whatever you want to call it at this time. Big three sales. I sold the PSA 9 from that David Adams Card World collection that I bought in the prior year. I bought it for $11,900. That included the PSA 9 base first Charizard that I sold for $5,800. PSA 10 complete set of hollows, base unlimited, for $3,500. And then a PSA 10 Crystal Charizard for $2,800. Really interesting to see the contrast between what those were going for in 2018 versus what they're going for today, what they went for in the boom especially. Big three buys. This is one that I've talked about multiple times. I actually found the original spreadsheet where I priced out the collection to figure out what I'd offer, what I'd pay. $40,000 collection. Guy drove a full-size Mercedes van from Canada, and we did the deal. He met at my house. I paid part certified check from the bank, part cash, part PayPal. Biggest collection I bought by far at the time. I borrowed 5 figures of money from my personal finances to help fund that collection. Immediately, I had a lot of stuff that flipped from it. I got the money back relatively quick, made a lot of money from that deal. Benefiting from the start, benefiting 2014 to 2018 and beyond of just continued appreciation largely across the board and continued growth of the hobby in general. You're talking 2014, Phantom Forces was the newest set. XY through Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield. The hobby's been very healthy, growing consistently overall. And I benefited from good flips, good buys, good sells, but also just continued appreciation and growth of the hobby in the background that helped make it all easier. Huge buy. I only list 2 I see now. I forgot to list the third, I guess, but between these 2, they count for more than 3, I would say, given how big they are. First Pikachu trophy, number 3. I don't remember exactly what I paid. Private deal through a friend who sourced it through someone else. I don't even know the ultimate source, who it came from, the winner themselves, but it was the first full art I got, and it was a number 3. Highlights for the year. This was the year that I completed most of my goals. WotC First Edition, every Hollow in PSA 9. Every EX in PSA 9. Every Gold Star in PSA 9. That $40,000 collection, the meat of it, the bulk of it, was mid-era. It was nearly a complete PSA 9 Gold Star in EX collection. It was tons of packs, tons of EX era packs, a little bit of Diamond Pearl Platinum, a little bit of all the way back to like base First Edition. A lot of everything going on there. But to get to $40,000 in 2018, that was massive. Massive for the time. Literally, as I said, just binders and binders, totes and totes, filling up a van, a full-size van. It was wild. My garage was filled for a couple of months till I got through that. I still have totes kicking around from that collection of just binders and things like that. I also nearly completed Level X's, Legends, cards like that. Biggest collection buy to date, setting new records, even though my gross sales went down. And I think I mentioned it at the beginning, but when I say gross sales, that's eBay plus PayPal plus private deals. I'm sure lost to time. I probably didn't have perfect records. I probably didn't hit quite everything. But yeah, when we get into 2022, especially the big numbers, those are gross sales, everything included. As I go through this video too, let me know in the comments below what you think. Let me know in the comments below. I could make so many videos. I could make each one of these years. I could make a 20-minute video for each year. If anyone has any desire for me to dig deeper into any topics, any years, anything, just let me know in the comments and I'll try my best to do that. 2019. Look at how low that gross got. Life. I had a son. I had a kid. I wanted to have a second kid. I bought a second house. We were outgrowing our starter home. In 2013, I bought with my then girlfriend. We were dating when we moved in, and then we lived together for about a year. A year later after that, we got married. So at this time, I was married with a kid. I wanted a second kid. Our starter home only had 2 bedrooms. We were outgrowing it. So in 2019, I bought a second house. Big 3 sales, PSA 9 base First Edition non-hollow set. This was the non-hollow set from either the David Adams Card World collection that I bought or the Gary. I think this might have been from the Gary collection that I bought. Everything 2019 hits especially hard because like it's the year before the boom. Almost every sale I made, if I just held them 1 year longer, they would have 10x'd. Obviously, again, I kept things flipping. I kept things moving. I didn't sell a ton. 109,000 in gross sales, down nearly 50%, over 50% from the years prior. So kind of fortunate with how my life was timed, where I was so busy that I didn't have time to focus on selling too much. Everything I had bought in the years prior was just sitting there, waiting for the boom, waiting for the appreciation. I sold, I should cover my buys first. I bought a number 3 and number 4 Pikachu. Mind you, I still had the number 3 Pikachu from 2018. So in 2019, I ended up having the opportunity, nearly 5 figures, nearly a 5-figure sale, but it was a 4-figure sale still. And I sold a Pikachu number 3, a spare copy. the worst of the two, had a little bit of a dent. I know the buyer ultimately ended up grading it, and it graded the PSA 9. So they overlooked or they missed a little bit of an issue, and it got the 9. Congrats to the buyer of that one. But I also sold a PSA 9 finalist festival for 2,500. One of the ones that came along with a Pikachu that I bought. Another highlight of 2019, and I think I missed this too in 2018. First in-person event. Only a month or two after my son was born, thank you to my wife, I was allowed to go to Nashville Worlds, and that was huge for me. That was huge, getting to meet so many people in person for the first time. That really did so much to just increase my love for the hobby, increase my love for this thing I had going on the side, this side hustle. And in 2019, I continued that by going to Washington, D.C. Worlds and just met, again, so many great people, got to see people a second time. I also went to a Hartford Collector event, which I believe was in 2019. I believe so. Maybe that was in 2018. One of these years, though. 2018 and 2019 was when I got the first taste of going to in-person events, and it made me want to do so much better. Made me want to do so much more and continue going to more and more events in the future. But after Worlds, after 2019 Worlds, going to DC, I really made a big buy thread on E4, and that's where a ton of big things happened. Highlights for the year, I mentioned it's the year of the trophies and Japanese promos, and I finished my English PSA 9 goals. You can see big 3 buys. PSA 10 Mysterious Pearl for $1,300. That will come back up. Masaki's, Grand Party, Fan Club, Burn Towers, all different kinds of Japanese cards. Now that I've finished all my English goals, opened every box, completed every card in PSA 9, I went fast and hard into English and Japanese trophies and promos. And it timed, again, so much luck in my story of how I got to where I am. Fortunate timing. I mean, they say that luck is when opportunity meets preparation, when preparation meets opportunity, something like that. So not 100% luck, but definitely a lot of luck. I am one to always say that I got here with hard work, but definitely with a big tailwind that really, really helped, just timing everything perfectly with my life and the boom and all that. Again, to date, we're 27 minutes in. This is going to be a wicked long video. I've not yet taken money out of the hobby. I've not yet. I've profited on paper. I've paid some taxes each year for my small amount of profits. But I've not taken any out. I put it all back in. I started with the $5,000 net in 2014. I'm still $5,000 net in, but I've built a huge collection. Every PSA 9 WotC First Edition Holo, all gold stars, all Level X's, Legends, all Call Legends Shinies, everything like that. Massive backlog of stuff. 2019, 2018, life was so busy. I didn't sell a ton relative to what I had. And then 2020 came. 2020 came. It's where it all changed. It's where I had a first sniff of like, this could maybe be something I do full time. Everything changed in 2020. Unfortunately, I mean, the pandemic, I mean, it's a bittersweet thing in some ways, because like I think that was one of the fuels to the fire. That was one of the parts of the perfect storm that led to everything I own 10 to 20xing in price. Absolutely unbelievable, unexpected. I did not have the time to, but somehow I managed to sell $372,000 in gross sales. Most of what I sold was parts of my collection that I didn't intend to sell anytime soon. I became a net seller. I paid off my house. I had my second child. We finished the purchase of our second house in 2019. I was fixing up a second house. Overview, kind of highlight for the year. I had my entire PSA 9 WotC First Edition set on eBay all the way through Skyridge, counting the crystals, counting the Neo Destiny Shinings. 370 cards, PSA 9 holos, First Edition where applicable. $60,000. Jake, Pokenomics, he messaged me. He was close. We were within $5,000 to $10,000 of him buying my entire collection. And it would have been pre-boom. It would have been a big mistake in hindsight. I was paying 2 mortgages. I was fixing up a house. I had 2 kids. I didn't have the time. This was pre-boom, pre-COVID. It almost happened. I almost sold it, but I didn't, thankfully. He ended up putting that money into other stuff. He did really well with it. I did really well with not having made the sale. Big 3 sales for the year, though. Pre-boom. PSA 9 Gold Star set, $12,750. During the boom, I don't know where that peaked exactly, 60,000, 70. I don't even know, a lot. I missed out on a lot of gains there. But what I bought with it immediately, you can see March I put. March of 2020, I bought the number 1 Pikachu. That did not complete my set because I had not yet bought a number 2. You see the picture in the bottom right under my face, kind of. 1 to 4 set was completed in 2020, but when I bought the number 1, it was not yet complete. Late in 2020, I ended up buying 2 number 2s, not just 1, but 2. And we'll get to that later in the next slide. I also bought a PSA 9 Master Scroll. I had seen a Master Scroll owned by Ed. A lot of people probably heard Gary mention Ed before. Birdman. I saw it in person at Worlds 2019. I ended up buying it in early 2020, a PSA 9 Master Scroll for about $3,500, if I remember correctly. And other big sales, peak boom. And this is the year I put for the memes. I put Eevees, Pikachu, Charizards. This is the year, $372,000. Of that, that included the PSA 9 Shadowless Howl set that I didn't intend to sell anytime soon, but it went to $35,000, so I had to sell it. I sold a PSA 9 base 4 set, 1999 to 2000 copyright date, for $13,000. I sold PSA 9 base unlimited holo sets for $9,000 to $10,000. I sold PSA 9 base unlimited Charizards for $3,000 to $6,000, multiple. PSA 10 Jungle Eevees Pikachus for $1,000 each. Absolutely incredible year. Absolutely insane. Most of, like, not most, a lot of that $372,000 was profit. One thing I'm not covering here, I'm not covering my net profit. I'm not covering my profit margins. My profit margins were high in 2020, pretty high. I paid off my house. I did a lot of big stuff for securing my family's financial future in 2020. And again, that's where first year that I netted anything out, I netted a lot out. I netted 6 figures out to set myself up. So 2020 was massive. Obviously, anybody who's been around and anybody who was there for it, they know and they understand. But yeah, that's kind of the theme for the year, just selling everything. Not buying a ton, but not buying a ton quantity, but quality, clearly. 3 Pikachu trophy cards, a number 1 and 2 number 2s, absolutely massive. 2021, my foray into full time. It's mind blowing. July of 2021, I quit my job. 2020 happened. I paid off my house. I got secure. 2021, a lot of prices started coming down, but a lot of other prices went up. Look at my big 3 sales. I sold number 4 trophy, and I sold a number 2 trophy. I was asked to not share the prices, but they were sold for very, I guess, very mid to high 5 figures. Really, really solid sales that just continued to allow me to build up my financial security for my family, my household, and build and establish a really good baseline of just cash flow for my business. I sold the PSA 9 Master Scroll that I mentioned that I bought for $3,500. I want to say I sold it for $6,000 or $7,000. And then I also had a PSA 10 Master Scroll. I forget exactly the timing on it, but I had a PSA 10 Master Scroll at one point that I sold for $6,000 or $7,000. And I downgraded it to a PSA 9 Master Scroll. During the boom, during 2021 sometime, a PSA 10 Master Scroll went to about $30,000. I had sold mine for $6,000, but I bought a 9 for around $3,000 at the time, $3,500 after I sold my 10. And then I proceeded to sell my 9 later in 2021 for about $11,000 or $12,000. So I did well. I didn't do as good as I could have had I held a PSA 10. But again, it is what it is. No regrets. Happy with where I'm at, and this is my journey, how I got here. So big 3 buys. Trophy Pikachu number 4. I've mentioned it before, not something I delved too deep into, but I bought and sold the same number 4 Pikachu. So I bought it in 2019, Pikachu number 3 and number 4. So in 2021, early 2021, I sold my number 4. And then 3 months later, the guy was selling it on eBay for about the same price he had paid me. But I contacted him. I think he moved on to a different trophy card. He decided he didn't want it anymore. The bubble was popping late 2020 to early 2021. So I was able to buy back the same copy for like very significantly less. Not half, but not much over half of what I had originally sold it for. High five figures. Really, really kind of a crazy deal, crazy thing. I sold my number 4, so I broke up my set because the 4 is the duplicate art of a 3. So the way that I justified it in my mind, I'm happy with the 1, 2, 3 because it's one of each art. But then I had the opportunity to buy back the 4, so I recompleted my set. And early in 2021, I also sold the spare number 2 that I acquired because I bought 2 number 2s in 2020. So I sold a spare number 2, massive gain, about a 5x gain from what I had bought it for the year prior. Huge. One thing I was really flipping well, it didn't come into my big sales, but I was buying multiple art sets of base set first edition booster packs, grading them PSA 9 and PSA 10 and selling them on. A couple 8s here and there. Other big 3 buys, complete base first edition sets on Heritage, $40,000-$50,000 collection that I did a video on. The squirrel behind me, the squirrel squad came from it. Overview for 2021, highlights for 2021. I became way more business oriented. Obviously, I quit my job and went full time. So I became more business oriented. In March of 2021, I created my YouTube channel. I created the podcast with Nick, Pokeflips, before it was Pokeflips, before it had its own channel. I had an inkling in March that I was going to quit my job to start doing this full time. I didn't take the leap till July of 2021. But when I created my YouTube channel, that's when I became more business oriented, took it more seriously, ended up forming an S corporation. So 2021 was a massive year. I also partnered with Jake from Pokenomics on the Patreon. Just another like avenue, another segment of my business. And 2022, the most recent year. Let me see if I can, there we go. 2022, I joined the 2 Comma Club. Going all the way back to the first slide, you could see on the y-axis, you could see the absolute rocket emoji near bubble-like graph. I mentioned in my 2021 recap video where I had spent $500,000 plus in Pokemon, I mentioned that I intended to reach the 2 Comma Club in 2022, and I did. And this again, gross sales. I did not make $1.2 million. I grossed that in sales. That's eBay. That's Troll and Toad. That's private sales, PWCC, everything, Heritage, everything. Big sales, obviously. One in the picture. I went down to Charlotte Collecticon and I sold not all 4. I brought all 4 just in case Rusty wanted to buy them. But I sold my 2 and my 4 to Rusty for $110,000. Huge amount of profit in that. I had very low cost basis in cards that I'd only bought a couple years prior. I sold a couple Art Academy PSA 10s. I sold a Melly for about $8,000, and I sold the Raincoat Fujishima or whatever for $10,500. I know there's been higher offers since. Again, it is what it is. You can't hit them all at the tops, but I sold a PSA 9 base first Charizard for $27,500. I downgraded that. One of the collections that I bought from Heritage that I mentioned here had a CGC 8 base first Charizard. So that's what currently, not in my personal collection, I wouldn't say. It's in my inventory. But that is the only base set first edition Charizard that I currently own. So I downgraded selling. I mean, I think I was lucky at the time. It was a PWCC sale for $27,500. Pretty high. It was a reasonable strong copy. It wasn't, I wouldn't say it was super strong, but it definitely wasn't weak. Wasn't on a PSA 10, but to get $27,500 for that was huge. That was sold through PWCC actually. Big 3 buys, very, very recent. I have a video series going on them and I'll make more videos at some point. $25,000 non-Pokemon collection, binder collection. DBZ, Score, Super, Naruto, Yu-Gi-Oh, all that stuff, all those collections that I showed, those binders. $23,000 Pokemon collection from the same seller. WotC first edition booster boxes. I bought a bunch of them. Fossil Jungle Rocket, all in the 10K range. Theme, having heavy packs to sell at the events. But yeah, overview, highlights for the year. First full year as a full-time business. I added buy now consignment services too in 2022. We split off Pokeflips into its own channel. Massive year. Couldn't have, when I quit my job in 2021, it was kind of crazy knowing that I was quitting into a bubble that was popping. But clearly, having more time to devote to it, having a huge cushion, having no personal debt, no mortgage, no student loans, no car loans, anything like that. having my wife who has the stable teaching job with a salary that pretty much covers our yearly expenses. I have a lot of runway. I gave myself a lot of runway with everything I sold in 2020. And yeah, I'm to the point where I'm cash flowing $100,000 a month through 2022. Absolutely smashed it out of the park relative to what my hopes and plans were when I quit my job, relative to what my hopes and plans were when I started having the thoughts in 2020. What a blur the past couple years have been. Absolutely crazy. Definitely happy that I took the leap, happy that I'm doing what I'm doing. And last slide, 2023, borrowing from a video a week or two ago, my seller nirvana, my plans for the year. I want a bigger number. It's not gonna go up. You can see, let's go all the way back. You can see this. The next one, that straight line is gonna break. I'm not gonna follow that same forecast. I don't think I'm gonna be doing 2 million in 2023, but I have big hopes and plans to make the number bigger. I'm hoping to beat the 1.2 million. I won't have the 6-figure deal with Rusty to help. I won't have the other #1 trainer deal to help. I've sold off some really big pieces of my collection, but I've also put that, I mean, I'm fully funding my 401ks, fully funding my IRAs, taking out mid-high 5 figures per year every year from here on. But in spite of that, I'm doing huge things with Troll and Toad Evo. And what I mentioned here, my seller Nirvana, I want to continue slow and steady growth through 2023, continue to build out my eBay and Troll and Toad inventories. I want to do regular submissions to PSA, a little bit to BGS and CGC here and there, potentially. Maintain liquidity. I want to have at least 1 month of cash flow on hand at all times for any and all opportunities that might present themselves. I want to be ready. I want to be there, be ready. But yeah, eBay partnership is one thing that I mentioned in that video that I'm looking towards, potentially getting a bigger account with Troll and Toad and pursuing bigger deals with them. That's everything. 42 minutes. Let me know in the comments if you stuck around to the end. Absolutely crazy. Like I said, it's the first time I've ever put those numbers together. I was diving into spreadsheets I haven't been in nearly a decade. I was looking at sales, watching videos of me opening packs, opening boxes. I wish I'd had a YouTube channel for all of it. I really wish I did, but this video, not at all intended to be like a bragging thing, an ego thing. It's not at all a flex. It is just to document my journey. I wish I'd had a YouTube channel all these years. I really wish I did. But I didn't. So I hope this video, a 10-year reflection, provides some amount of value. I know there's a lot of people out here who watch my channel who do this the same way I did in 2014 as a hobby, just trying to get their dollar to go as far as possible. And who knows, maybe in 10 years you'll be quitting your job to do it full time. Maybe not too. But if any part of my journey can help satisfy your curiosity, entertain you in some way, or actually provide useful guidance or kind of a structure or kind of a this is what it looks like, this is what I did. Again, feel free to leave any questions, comments if you want to see more videos, if you want to see something dive deeper into. I don't know how much deeper you can go than a 43-minute video, but yeah, this could be 10 43-minute videos, if not more. So yeah, I really appreciate everyone who's been with me going all the way back to 2014 E4 days, been with me any part of this journey, watching me on YouTube today. It's been amazing, and I couldn't be happier with it. So here's to the next 10 years, I guess, and beyond. I appreciate you all watching as always, and I will catch you all later.